April 3, 1996. Near Lincoln, Montana, two FBI agents and a Forest Service officer approach a small wooden cabin. They tell the man inside that they need to inspect the property around him. When Theodore Kaczynski steps outside, they take control of him. At that moment, they possess a search warrant. They still need evidence proving that the quiet man living in the mountains is the bomber they have hunted for 17 years. This is how the Unabomber was finally caught. The investigation begins on May 25, 1978, in Chicago. A package is found in a parking lot at the University of Illinois Chicago Circle campus. It is addressed to a professor at Northwestern University, but it has never entered the mail system. The professor named as the sender does not recognize it. Campus security is called. When an officer opens the package, it explodes and injures him. The device is primitive. Its components are ordinary. Nothing clearly identifies the person who built it. 1 year later, another package explodes at Northwestern University. A graduate student is injured. Then, on November 15, 1979, smoke begins filling the passenger cabin of American Airlines Flight 444, traveling from Chicago to Washington, D.C. A bomb has detonated inside the luggage compartment. It fails to operate as intended, and the aircraft lands safely. Several passengers suffer from smoke inhalation. The bombing of an aircraft brings the FBI directly into the investigation. The Bureau joins the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and the United States Postal Inspection Service. Their case receives a name based on the early targets: universities and airlines. University. Airline. Bombing. Unabomber. The press will eventually turn that case name into another word: Unabomber. Investigators examine every surviving fragment. They study metal, wood, wire, batteries, fasteners, and packaging. But the bomber appears to understand what forensic investigators need. He uses common materials. He removes identifying marks. He leaves no useful fingerprints. Components that might be traced to a manufacturer or shop are altered or stripped. There is no clear relationship between the victims. In June 1980, a package arrives at the home of United Airlines President Percy Wood. Inside is a hollowed book containing a bomb. Wood survives the explosion. Over the next several years, devices appear at universities in Utah, Tennessee, and California. Professors, students, and university employees are injured. The targets suggest a pattern: academia, aviation, computers, technology. But the investigators do not yet know whether those subjects represent an ideology, a personal grievance, or deliberate misdirection. The bomber also plants false clues. Some devices contain initials or objects that appear important but lead nowhere. Investigators build profiles anyway. They consider mechanics, engineers, scientists, and disgruntled university employees. They investigate men and women. They compare travel records, employment histories, and academic backgrounds. The task force eventually grows to more than 150 investigators, analysts, and specialists. Still, they do not have a name. On December 11, 1985, the campaign changes. Hugh Scruton, the owner of a computer store in Sacramento, finds an object in the parking lot behind his business. When he moves it, the device explodes. Scruton becomes the first person killed by the Unabomber. 14 months later, another device is left outside a computer store in Salt Lake City. An employee sees a man near the parking area. He wears a hooded sweatshirt and aviator sunglasses. The bomb severely injures the store owner's son. The witness helps produce a composite drawing. It will become one of the most recognizable criminal sketches in the United States. The bomber now knows that someone has seen him. Then he disappears. For 6 years, no new device is connected to the case. Some investigators consider the possibility that the bomber has died. Others think he has been imprisoned for an unrelated crime. He may have lost access to materials. He may simply have stopped. In reality, the silence reveals one of his strongest advantages. He can wait. On June 22, 1993, a package explodes inside the California home of geneticist Charles Epstein. 2 days later, Computer scientist David Gelernter opens another package at Yale University. The explosion causes severe injuries, including damage to his hand and eye. Letters sent around the attacks introduce an organization called FC. The bomber presents the violence as the work of a group. Investigators are skeptical. Maintaining a secret organization across so many years would require communication, movement, and human error. None is visible. The task force begins examining the possibility that FC consists of one person. Investigators rebuild the case from the beginning. They organize evidence inside a central database. Old assumptions are separated from established facts. Every bombing is examined again. One small detail becomes important. The first package in 1978 had an address and postage. A mailbox stood nearby. Why had the bomber abandoned it in the parking lot instead of mailing it? Investigators reconstruct the dimensions of the package and compare them with postal information about the mailbox. The package would not have fit through its opening. The detail supports the idea that the bomber had personally carried the device to the Chicago campus. Other early attacks also point toward familiarity with Chicago. Later incidents suggest connections to Salt Lake City and the San Francisco Bay Area. The geographic map becomes narrower. The psychological profile changes as well. The bomber is not necessarily an impulsive young attacker. His caution suggests patience. His references suggest education. His long absences show control. The lack of personal connections to the victims suggests they may have been selected through public information rather than direct contact. Then the bombs become more lethal. On December 10, 1994, advertising executive Thomas Mosser receives a package at his home in North Caldwell, New Jersey. It explodes and kills him. On April 24, 1995, another mailed bomb kills Gilbert Murray, president of the California Forestry Association, inside his Sacramento office. By this point, 16 known devices have killed 3 people and injured more than 20. The bomber is still unidentified, but he has started writing. He contacts newspapers and magazines. He submits letters explaining his hostility toward industrial society and technological development. In 1995, he offers a deal. If a major publication prints a long essay titled "Industrial Society and Its Future," he claims that the killings will stop. The document is approximately 35,000 words long. The government now faces a problem. Publishing it could appear to reward violence. Refusing could be followed by another bomb. The task force sees another possibility. A device can be assembled from anonymous pieces. A long piece of writing is different. It contains vocabulary, spelling, repeated phrases, arguments, and habits developed over decades. Someone may recognize them. FBI Director Louis Freeh and Attorney General Janet Reno approve publication. On September 19, 1995, the Washington Post prints the Manifesto as a special section. The New York Times helps share the cost. The response is enormous. More than 50,000 calls reach the UNABOM tip line in the following months. Friends accuse friends. Employees report colleagues. Readers identify professors, engineers, activists, and relatives. Among those readers are David Kaczynski and his wife, Linda Patrick. Linda has already wondered whether David's older brother could be connected to the attacks. David initially resists the idea. Ted is difficult and isolated, but suspicion of a relative is not evidence. Then David reads the manifesto. The arguments feel familiar. So does the language. Ted has written letters and essays expressing similar concerns about technology and modern society. David and Linda consult an attorney. Through legal representatives, the family provides investigators with material written by Ted years earlier, including a 23-page essay from 1971. Ted Kaczynski becomes Unabomber suspect, number 2416. His background fits several elements of the investigation. He was born in Chicago. He entered Harvard at 16, earned a doctorate in mathematics, and briefly taught at the University of California, Berkeley. In 1971, he moved to land near Lincoln, Montana, where he lived largely apart from modern infrastructure. Investigators compare his earlier writing with the Manifesto. They find similarities in phrasing, ideas, spelling, and sentence construction. A repeated concept involving the narrowing of human freedom attracts particular attention. But writing analysis alone cannot convict him. The task force builds an application to search his cabin. Agents review his movements, education, family information, and connections to locations linked with the bombings. The linguistic evidence is combined with the wider investigative record. A federal judge approves the warrant. On April 3, 1996, officers move toward the cabin. They use the property inspection story to bring Kaczynski outside. He is detained without a violent confrontation. The cabin is searched. Inside, investigators find bomb components, tools, extensive handwritten journals, and several typewriters. They discover roughly 40,000 pages of notes describing experiments and documenting the bombing campaign. A completed bomb is found beneath the bed, wrapped and nearly ready to be mailed. It has no named recipient. The search also uncovers written admissions connected to all 16 attacks. The manhunt is finished. Federal prosecutors charge Kaczynski in connection with multiple bombings, including the attacks that killed Hugh Scruton and Gilbert Murray and injured Charles Epstein and David Gelernter. In January 1998, he pleads guilty to federal charges and acknowledges responsibility for the Unabomber campaign. On May 4, 1998, he is sentenced to 4 consecutive life terms plus 30 years, without the possibility of release. For 17 years, investigators searched bomb fragments for a trace of the person who made them. The decisive trace was not metal, wire, or fingerprints. It was language. The hunt ended because one family recognized a voice. The next unknown attacker may leave the same kind of trace. Will anyone recognize it in time?